Yes, sir, I can hear you. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good evening.
How have you been, sir? How has the
All
day
good.
been
All
for you?
good. Happy Sunday to all of you guys.
Great. Neha, ma'am, could you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right. How have you been, ma'am?
I'm good.
All
How are
right.
you?
I'm doing great.
Great.
So, yes. Arjun, sir, if you allow me, can I give a brief introduction of yours?
Well, yeah.
Thank you. So, Mr. Arjun Vaidya, sir, is currently leading venture investing for Verlinvest in India. And he's also an active angel investor and mentor to brands in India's startup ecosystem. After graduating from Brown University and working at LVMH's private equity arm, he decided to start an Ayurvedic healthcare company named Dr. Vaidya that would combine the family's traditions with cool branding, continuing his family legacy. He built Dr. Vaidya's into India's largest Ayurveda brand online. This brand was recently acquired by RP Sanjiv Goenka Group, making it one of India's first D2C exits. He is the first Ayurvedic entrepreneur to be featured in the Forbes 30 under 30 Asia list and Business World 40 under 40 list. Outside work, he is a World Economic Forum global shaper, a mentor at AIM, and a part of Brown's University Young Alumni Advisory Council. He also runs a podcast, directs to billion consumers, on navigating India's complex and exciting FMCG ecosystem. We are pleased to have you for the session, sir.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Excited to be a part of this conversation. And yeah, I'd love to share with you and maybe learn from you guys as well.
All right. Neha ma'am, before handing over to you, I would also like to give a brief introduction of yours.
Sure.
Thank you. So, Neha Goyal ma'am is an alum of SJM from IIT Bombay and is currently a management consultant at Accenture Strategy. Before, she has worked as a software engineer with a demonstrated history of working in the information technology and services industry. She is skilled in Java and C programming languages and database administration systems. She is someone who is keen and enthusiastic about learning and experimenting with new skills. We are all pleased to have you as the moderator for the session, ma'am. Over to you for the session, ma'am.
Thank you so much. So, welcome once again, Arjun sir. So, sir, like since you've mentioned as per your description that you come from a background of Ayurveda, so beginning right from there, I would want to ask you, like with the growing acceptance of traditional medicine worldwide globally, where do you see Ayurveda making an impact, not just India or let's say Asian countries, but globally and giving competition to modern medicine as a whole? What are your
Well,
2 cents on
look,
that?
Neha, I think it's a good question. And I think that's the premise behind why I started what I ended up doing, right? So the background to that is I went to college in the US in 2009. I went from my undergrad to Brown University. And there I saw a move towards natural organic products. I saw yoga being repackaged, yoga mats, yoga gyms, yoga apparel, Lululemon, multi-billion-dollar industry in the US. And while it was really cool to see yoga repackaged and rebranded, I think what was not so exciting for me was that Indian companies didn't take yoga to the world, right? And so being someone who's super patriotic, I wear this band with the Indian flag on my hand, have been wearing this for the last 10 years. I started thinking, why aren't Indian companies involved in the process of yoga? And let's not let the same happen with Ayurveda. So that was the thought process behind which I moved back to India, and eventually the thought process behind which I started my company. The idea was that we have an ancient science, we have a lot of history and a lot of appeal, but we need to repackage and rebrand for modern consumers. That was the thought process behind starting my business. I think we have huge scope, whether it's tea, whether it's yoga, whether it's Ayurveda, whether it's certain kinds of foods. I think there's lots of scope for our Indian brands to go global. I think the only thing we have to understand is 2 things. One, world-class, and 2, appealing in a modern format. If we can get those 2 things, then we have lots of exciting scope ahead of us.
Yes, sir, and I think I really resonate with the way you've really merged yoga and Ayurveda. I'm also a certified yoga professional, and that like I can really resonate and understand the way you're mentioning how important yoga is in today's world, no matter how much modern medicines take over. But I think the essentials of Ayurveda, yoga, this is something that will always stay prevalent, especially in Western countries as well today. Coming to entrepreneurship, sir, my next question to you is about the time when you quit your job on the 150, you had like the 150-year-old family's legacy to fall back upon. So I'm just interested to know, like, what was in your mind when you wanted to lead a brand as an entrepreneur rather than sit back or work as an employee? Because today that is what we see more of the notion, because it's a safe way to just fall back on your job as an employee. So what made you do the transition?
Yeah, look, it's really difficult, right? To sort of quit your job, especially for me, because I had a really prestigious job. I was working in private equity straight out of college, and it's not common for people to get private equity jobs straight out of college. So I think from that perspective, it was pretty comfortable job, a pretty well-paying job, and something that was very coveted, right? And so to go from that to being an entrepreneur is one thing, but being an entrepreneur with almost no salary and no view on when I will make it, I think it's a big risk. But look, I think that's the only way to do it. I see lots of people who see their startup is their side hustle while they're building their career, and then once the startup becomes big, then they'll quit their job and they'll start up. But I don't think scalable startups are built part-time. That's my view. Maybe a slightly controversial view, but you can't be slightly pregnant with entrepreneurship. Either you're in or you're out, and that's a conscious decision I made. Did I second guess it? Like tens of times. When things are not going so well, you're like, did I actually make the right decision to quit my job? But I never regretted it, and I think eventually it panned out to have been one of the best decisions I took. But yeah, I think that's really the way to do it. I think you got to rip off the band-aid and just jump right in and then take life as it comes.
That's true. So you mentioned like you should either be all in or all out. But what if in a case, let's say you're all in and then you fail? How do you come off that? And because failure, as we see that 8 out of 10 startups fail. So how do you actually go past that and grow your brand, or let's say move to the next startup in case of failure?
There's two types of failure, right? There is a daily sort of something that didn't go well for you. And that doesn't mean your startup is a failure or the idea is a failure. And that's the job of an entrepreneur, right? To face failure every day with grit and resilience and come back and fight, right? That's one kind of failure. The other kind of failure is the failure that you need to look at in the mirror with. And while as entrepreneurs, we are eternal optimists, you need to have a mirror or a reality check, which is this idea working, right? Like if, let's say, for example, I'm running Dr. Vaidya's and I tried to get to 100 orders a day on Amazon and I got only to 50 orders a day or 40 orders a day. It's not a failure of the idea. It's a failure of my objective. But if I'm trying to start a digital Ayurvedic products business and people don't want to buy Ayurveda digitally and it's been 1 year and nobody's buying it, then that's an idea failure. And so sometimes it's important to see that mirror, and if things are just not working out, while you don't give up easily, when you need to say it's not working, I think you need to be rational about it and accept it and move on. It's not easy to deal with failure both ways. And there is no sugarcoating it. While we read in the press and in sort of media that people say celebrate your failure, wear like a badge of honor on your sleeve, etc., all of that. I would say that like it's a cultivated skill that I haven't mastered yet. I'm still not okay when I fail, but I've gotten better at it.
Okay. I think that makes a lot of sense, sir. Because when people say that, yeah, failure is as you said, carry it on your slave and all, people say it, but it's really hard to accept it when it's yours failure. So I think that makes sense. Yeah. The way you mentioned that you should have an idea or rather mirror of ideas. So I want to ask you, how is it that you assess between different ideas? And let's say you have various ideas, but how do you execute it? Because people say that having ideas is different, but execution is key. So how
look, I put this quote on LinkedIn and I truly believe it. Ideas are good, but unicorns are made from blood, sweat, tears, and high quality execution, right? Correct. And so an idea is not enough. It's just not enough. It's the starting point. It's the bare minimum. It's where you start the conversation. And then from there is where you really sort of build a business. And so there were many Facebooks before Facebook, many Googles before Google, and many Apples before Apple. But Apple is Apple, Google is Google, and Facebook is Facebook because of the better execution, the quality of execution there is, right? And I can't stress it enough, because Ayurveda, taking Ayurveda online, taking Ayurveda digital, making it new is a fantastic idea. People have tried it before me as well. But I think the only way to really prove your chops is to execute.
Yes. I think that's actually right. And the other question that streams from this, which most of the new generation entrepreneurs have, is how do you get that initial customer base from the beginning itself? Like, where is the platform where you start and keep scaling up?
Yeah, it's a really tough thing, especially in consumer brands, because you have to build that trust in the customer's mind, right? And that's not easy at all. So I think that initial customer base and getting your first 1,000 customers is the toughest part of it. What you got to do is figure out your unique selling proposition, right? Your USP for your business.
Right.
And so for us, we set out with 3 things. 150 years of legacy, right? That's number 1. Number 2, we talked very openly about our process, our approvals, our credibility as a brand. That's number 2. And number 3, we made Ayurveda easy to understand for modern consumers, right? In an appealing, accessible format. I think these 3 things put together allowed us to engage with our first set of customers. Once you engage the first set of 1,000 customers, there's network effects that set in, right? And then you have word of mouth and testimonials and all of those things. But breaking the barrier or setting out for those first set of customers, I think that's the most challenging part, but the most exciting part as well.
Yes, I think.
So the journey of Dr. Vaidya's from 0 to 50 orders a day was as long as the journey from 50 to 5,000 orders a day.
So which part of this got more difficult, if you have to say it that way?
0 to 50, right? Because at 50 orders a day, you're 5,000, you're at least sure that you have 50 orders a day.
Correct.
But at 0, you have 0, right?
Yeah, that's right. And speaking of your podcast, Direct to a Billion Consumers, so I am familiar with it. I've heard it recently. Where do you plan to take this forward? What do you think? How do you plan to scale it up bigger? Like, let's say, reach to a bigger and better audience. And what do you think will happen to this medium in future? And how can you reuse this better for public awareness? How do you plan to take this forward?
Yeah, look, I think other than my role as a VC, I do a lot of things for our ecosystem and community. My podcast is my hobby. I'm not going to say that it's my full-time thing. Why did I do the podcast? Right? I did the podcast and I do a bunch of other things which I'm happy to talk about, because I felt like there was a limited support ecosystem for D2C founders and early stage founders. And that's something that I wanted to solve for and build. And so I ended up creating this podcast as a repository of information for anyone who wants to start an e-commerce brand. Similarly, I used to get, after I sold my business, hundreds of questions from founders on, should I use Shopify or WooCommerce? Is SEO really relevant? Which marketplace should I list on? How do I list my products on marketplaces? How do I scale sales? Should I have a retention strategy? And it was not scalable for me to answer each of these questions on WhatsApp. And so I now teach India's largest cohort-based course on D2C e-commerce, which I started last year around this time, actually, and we just started our 4th cohort today. Other than this, I'm launching an exciting version of this course in Hindi, because lots of people came to me and said, you teach in English, but what about Hindi? So it'll launch in December on Kuku FM as well, in sort of bite-sized content for a shopkeeper in a tier 3 city to be able to go online. So I think I do all of these things to enable the ecosystem, to give back to founders, to help them with things that I didn't have access to and I didn't know. So I think that's why I do all of these things. Where it's going to go, I think I'm just going to get better and better each time. I set high standards for myself. And so I think we're already number 1 in the podcast in the D2C space and number 1 in the cohort-based course space for the podcast. Maybe, I don't know, it goes on video. It's only on audio right now. Maybe I try video. With the course, I just want to keep doing more and more and more.
Yeah. In fact, I would like really request and urge the people who haven't heard it yet to just go back and listen to this, because it's nothing short of amazing. It's truly aspirational and inspirational, both in one. So you just mentioned like about the VC role as well. So just curious to know, like, why did you exit from your own built family brand, Dr. Vaidya, and choosing the venture capitalist role above it?
Yeah, look, I didn't choose the venture capitalist role above it. I first sold my business and then Then the venture capital role found me. So I didn't sell my business for VC.
Okay.
Dr. Vaidya's was not a family business. While people think it's a family business, it was a family legacy. My dada ran a clinic. After he passed away, the doctor who ran that clinic wasn't there, and it was a legacy which would have died had I not done anything with it. My goal was not to run a clinic. My goal was to build a business out of it. And that's what I ended up doing with Dr. Vaidya's. So we did start it from scratch. We took it to a nice place. And then to be honest, we got a really good offer from our investors to buy the business. I think heart of heart, I knew that I was a good online operator and I'd taken the business to $1 million a month online. I didn't know how much space there was for us to grow further in the online space. The future of the growth of the business was offline, and I wasn't the right person for that. I don't know how to run an offline business. So I thought it was the right home for the business. These people were very passionate about the business. It was a large group, RP Sanjiv Goenka Group. And I think as a founder, you know when the right time is, and it's the right time for you. It may not be the right time for Neha, it may not be the right time for the other people on this call, but for Trisha and I, it was the right time, and we felt it was the right time, and so we took that decision. Half my friends said it was too early, half my friends said it was the right time. The answer to that question we'll know in a couple of years, but I think for me, it just felt like the right moment.
Yes, I think this really gives out the message that you listen to everyone, but do what your heart says. I think that broadly.
This kind of decision, I think it's a very, very personal one.
I think others cannot really assess what kind of situation you are in or what is the right decision. That really comes from you. So yeah, I think that's a broader message to the audience as well. So as you mentioned, like it was your own family brand, and then you are a VC route. So with your first experience as well as an investor in private equity firms, so there are different industries that you must have got exposure to or understood, or at least have navigated throughout your journey. So every business wants to raise money, but how was your experience throughout the journey? What do you feel? How have you evolved from the first day to today?
Yeah, look, as a private equity investor, I can't say that I was making so many decisions. I was 21 to 24 years old, and so I was learning. I was a sponge. I think from my private equity experience, I learned, I met some of the best consumer businesses in India across cars, bikes, apparel, lifestyle, fashion, retail, wine and spirits, watch and jewelry. And I learned what a good entrepreneur is and what a good entrepreneur does. I think that's sort of what that journey was as private equity. As I was running my business and I went to various investors, and I had 75 failed pitches before I was able to raise money. I learned the way to pitch, the way to tell your story, but also to go at the right time to investors when you've established product market fit. And then as a VC right now, I invest through a 3-pronged framework. Because I invest in the early stage, it's 50% on founder. Who is that person? Why do they have a right to win? And why would they fight through tough times? And then second would be market size. Is it a large enough market that caters to more people than just me? And the third thing I would say is the business and the economics. So what are the sales? What's the growth velocity? What's the gross margin? What's the team behind the business? What's the customer acquisition cost, lifetime value? So if I was to ascribe percentages, it would be 50% founder, 20% market size, and 30% business and economics. That's how I invest today.
That's nice. That's really nice to know. In fact, the time you mentioned the 75 failed pitches, like I hadn't come across that, but now I understand that there's so much behind just a success story. We just listen to the success, but the backdrop really remains invisible. So thanks for highlighting that. So, and the way you were mentioning about the different industries, I would also want to know, like, from you, what is your opinion personally of which kind of businesses or which kind of industries do you think will grow the most in the next, let's say, 5 to 10 years with new digital technologies which are coming into the picture today?
Look, I'm a big believer in e-commerce and D2C. So I would say D2C. I think there's a huge opportunity outside of consumer products as well in digitally enabled brands. So consumer technology and platforms. And I think there's a big market for enablement to commerce as well. As e-commerce grows, so will marketing automation, so will logistics, so will quick commerce, so will supply chain automation, so will the creator economy. So I would say for me, my areas of focus and where I'm excited is consumer brands, consumer technology and platforms, and then enablement to commerce. These are the 3 spaces that I spend most of my time in.
Okay. And since you mentioned about like D2C and how it will acquire, like, let's say the most market in the next 5 to 10 years. So what about the like emerging technologies, like let's say 5G, metaverse? How do you think that they will play a role in building the new medical health startups and the future in India?
Look, I can't say I know. I'm not a Web3 crypto guy. I was tempted last year, but I didn't make any investments in that space. That's not a space I'm an expert at. Not that it's not a space that's relevant, it's just not a space for me. I think we've seen what 4G and Geo did to India, right? So 5G is going
Yes.
to do that even more. I think access to data has changed the way people consume anything, content, products, aspirations. I went to visit a startup in a startup helping enable digital commerce in villages. And I think from my experiences in those 4 villages outside of Raebareli in UP, what I saw is aspiration levels are as high. They're watching YouTube, they're on Facebook. And when I said, hey, this company is giving you groceries, what else do you want? They were like, we want makeup, we want saris, we want cricket bats, we want badminton rackets, we want sports shoes, we want athletic clothing. This is a village outside of Raebareli with a population of less than 5,000. So I think 5G is going to do the same good work that 4G did and that Jio has done for us. And I think it's good that we have equality of knowledge and aspiration.
Yes, that's right. So, and coming to experience of investing, when you invest in a business, so what is the most crucial factor? What is the first thing that you look at? And what do you think are the most important parameters which can be a deal maker or a deal maker or a breaker kind of a thing?
So look, I talked to you about the parameters already.
Yes.
When I talked about my framework. I think deal breaker for me is actually, does the founder like me and do I get along with the founder? Because while it can be a great business, does the person want to work with me and do I want to work with that person? Because it's very easy to deploy money. But after you deploy money, you got to meet that person a month for 5 to 7 years, right?
Yes.
And are they okay to meet you and are you okay to meet them? I think that's an important question that not many people talk about. It's an interpersonal relationship that's very important. So I think that's for me the deal maker or breaker. Other than that, obviously the 3 factors that I talked to you about. And I like specifically founders solving problems outside of elite India. So if they're solving problems in Bharat for tier 2, tier 3 customers, that's a bias for me. I like businesses that have that kind of scale.
Okay. And we've also seen that you're a constant promoter of increased participation of women in entrepreneurship. So how can we achieve that? What are the initiatives that you have taken or are in progress or you plan to take, let's say, in the future?
Yeah, look, I think my wife was my co-founder. She got the same, if not more, responsibility than me. I've said it on multiple public platforms. Without her, I wouldn't have been able to build the business to what I did. I've invested actively in various businesses run by women founders. 50% of the Dr. Vaidya's team was women as well. I think we have a long way to go, but initiatives like the latest list of that Mint and Invest India and Good Glam curated 100 top women founders in India just need to keep happening. But I think you've got to start at home. And so around you, in your social circle, in your friends and family, promote the prospective entrepreneurs, the women in the workforce. I think like one thing I'm consciously made a decision to do is my wife is in her 8th month, going to be in her 9th month of pregnancy now. And I've told her that whatever people may say around you, if you feel like you want to work through the whole pregnancy, do it. And when you deliver the baby, if you want to start work as soon as possible, there's no shame in doing that. You do what works for you. And if you need support from me, I'm happy to be there. And I know that she's someone who's worked all her life. So why should she stop working? Because she's had a baby. I think like equal parenting for me at that point is something that I will resonate with and I'll be there to support her. And I think small steps like this can go a long way in our country for sure.
Yes, I think that is like truly an inspiration, because where today still some of the families or villages, they think that it's primarily a woman's job, but you equalizing it and saying it's a 50-50 job, I think that is a very big message.
Right? I think it should
be. Of course.
There's no shame in it.
Of course, being a woman, I think I truly resonate with what you're saying. But how do you think we can make it reach the greater depths of India, or let's say globally? Because there's still places where women are considered lower compared to a man or even otherwise. So how do you think that this message, that the thing that you've just told, how can it penetrate deeper within India and globally?
Look, I would say that let's not think about global, because that's too large a problem to think about. From an India perspective, I think start small, start around you. If each of us, there are more than 100 people on this call, if each of us thinks about this, promotes people around us, spreads the message, I think that's good enough start, right? There are various drops of water that make an ocean, and so all of us need to do our bit. I'm a big proponent in small action and more often than large action and rarely. So if all of us can do our bit, I think we'll be in a very special place. And so let's all take a pledge, right? There are 100 people on this call. Let's all, over the next week, try to support one female founder or woman in the workforce in something that will enable them to perform better or do what they're doing, right? And if all of us can do that in the world around us, that's already a big step forward.
I think that's true. The way we say charity begins at home. So it's like we can just begin our small steps, and that can lead to a better India and therefore a better global environment as well. So yes, I also completely understand. I think I completely agree with what you've just told. So yeah, that's a good point to lay forward. And coming to investing again, what is the advice that you would give someone who's a little naive or new to investing? What kind of investment product should one target when he's not very aware of the investing world and just begun his journey?
I'm new to this world as well. My oldest investment is 18 months old as a full-time investor. So ask me this question in 5 years. I'm learning, so I don't have the answer.
I think so. You're still old compared to all of us in investing world, at least.
Look, I think the only thing I've learned is don't invest in FOMO.
Okay.
Invest because you believe and do your own research. That's what I've learned till now.
Okay. And investing, or let's say entrepreneurship as a whole, what is the one big message that you would lay out for the budding entrepreneurs who have just started their journey or are in the progress of it? What do you think should be your 2 cents on?
Yeah, there's no better time than now. I have never seen the vibrance, the enthusiasm, and the excitement in the startup ecosystem in India as it is now. We're at the right place at the right time, so make use of it. And my advice always is the best way to start is to start, right? Don't philosophize, don't think too much. Go out, talk to customers, get them to buy your product, and the rest you can leave up to history.
Yes, so that's true. Coming to customers, as you just mentioned, how important is value addition for customers and gaining customer trust in this journey?
I think both are paramount. From a value addition perspective, there are lots of products available. India is a big country with lots of competition. So if you're not adding value, you get sort of called out or seen through very quickly. And from a brand perspective or from a business perspective, I remember this one saying. It used to be in my aunt's office. It said it takes years to nurture a customer and seconds to lose one. And the best entrepreneurs, the best founders I've met are the ones who do whatever they can for their customer base. So I think it's a saying that meant a lot to me.
I think that is completely true, because it actually takes years of hard work to bring out customers, but just seconds to lose one. Yes, that's right. So in just one of the podcasts, you had also mentioned that your father suggested that you need to make yourself indispensable in the firm that you work. Is this advice, do you think that if it is still relevant, and in which way is it relevant? And is it also true when you have found your own company, like not just in the firm that you're working, but in your own startup, let's say?
No, I don't think it's true in your own startup, because if you're not indispensable in your own startup, then that's a problem, right? Like, so I think it goes without saying for your own startup. For all the people who go to a job or start a career or go into the corporate world, this thesis or this point, right, made me believe or understand that don't consider yourself as an employee. Even if you're in a company, you don't own it, behave like an owner. That's the only way you'll be able to be the best in your career as well. So that's the insight I got from there. That's why I was able to convert my internship into a job in a private equity fund and eventually move on with my career.
Yes, I think just considering that you are also the owner and then you're working it as if you're owning the work, that is one of the prime things, not just working for someone. So Yeah, I guess that is one takeaway for everyone here. That is completely something which is very relevant today as well. So, yeah. But considering your journey from the day you started and the day you're today, how do you think it has evolved? Not just in terms of the different roles you've taken, but personally, professionally, both of them. From the day you just started off, let's say you thought that today you'll start off, and the day to which we are seeing you and we are here. What's
Yeah,
the
look, I
journey?
think there's lots of evolution left in me as a person,
Hmm.
but I think I did grow up a lot building my company. I learned a lot of reality. I saw the amount of hard work it takes to build. I got a lot more respect for entrepreneurs. I learned how to deal with teams, build teams, motivate people. Um, I learned also how to deal with dejection and failure, but still keep a smile on your face and still be positive through it. Then eventually I learned um, as an investor now how to pick and how to judge people. I think that's the best skill
Hmm.
of someone who works in this space. So I think I grew up a lot over the last 5 years, and I would say the Indian startup ecosystem has all to do with it. So I became who I am because of my startup journey, and hopefully some of you can go through the same thing.
Yes. But having done so much in your journey, how do you find time? Like, how do you manage the time so well? Because from your description itself, you've done so much over the last few years. So how is it that you find right time for the right thing?
I'm not good at prioritization of time and management of time, so I just put in more hours than everybody else. That's the way I manage it. I'm not a smart worker, I'm a hard worker, and I know that. And so I'll put in more hours than most people. I worked the whole of today from 11 a.m. till now. And that's just the way I am.
I like it. So when you say you put it out so blatantly that, I don't believe it. And let's say I'm more of a hard worker than a smart worker because
You have to be a mirror to yourself and accept your shortcomings, right?
yes, but it's difficult. People do not really readily accept. But the fact that you're laying it out so truthfully and honestly, it's something that's really inspirational. So I like that. But then how do you define, or let's say, how do you differentiate between smart work and hard work? What do you think is better? Because, or more sustainable
Smart
for the
work is
long?
definitely better, but I don't know how to do it. So I think if you're a smart worker, good on you, but I'm not one, right? I'm not great at prioritization. I'm really bad at saying no.
Hmm.
So I'm here having this conversation with you guys because obviously I wanted to be a part of this. I will finish this conversation and head straight to my friend's wedding. And so yeah, that's not the idea of a Sunday, but that's what I choose to do.
I think that's nice. But then, having done so much throughout your course of journey, how do you take pauses in life, like time to reflect on what you've done, time to plan for the future? How do you do that? Taking the right pauses.
I got lucky that I got to sell my company and take a 3-month pause,
Hmm.
figure out what the next set of things I want to do is. But I think it's really important to take breaks. I don't mean 10-day holidays. I mean a trek on a Sunday, a run during the week, um,
Hmm.
um, watching TV or a movie with family and friends, having dinner with loved ones. I think all of these things help you recharge your batteries because we live in a dog eat dog and a sort of rat race world today. And so you got to disconnect for a little bit. It's not so easy, but it's really important.
Yes. And just a little on the same. So, how important is learning also throughout the process? While it's important to take breaks, how important is it to be a lifelong student or a lifelong learner along the way?
I think open mind, the smartest people have the most open minds. While you may not take every piece of feedback or every piece of advice, you should at least listen to it. You
Hmm.
can make your own decisions, but the smartest people are the best learners.
Yes, that's true. But then, and it's also said that if you're the smartest in the room, you should change your room. So, yeah, I think that continuous evolvement is also important. Yeah, I think you've laid that out very well. Coming back to Ayurveda again and India as a whole, so I just wanted to ask you, like, what do you think if is India ready for another pandemic if we face one of them in the future? And how do you think that Ayurveda can help it making more future ready or resilient in that sense?
Look, I don't know if we're ready for another pandemic yet, because I think a lot of us have forgotten about it. I'm guilty of not wearing a mask ever. So look, I think Ayurveda did a lot in the first wave, right? And the first part of the
Hmm.
pandemic as well, whether it's giving reassurance to people, staying open, keeping our factories running, immunity boosters, card hubs. And I think COVID helped Ayurveda businesses like mine as well. And I think the concept of immunity is now relevant in today's consumer, which wasn't the case pre-2020, pre-March 2020. So I think from that perspective, we have become more cognizant. We think about health. It's a part of conversation. We now say, hope you are healthy and safe instead of just how you're doing. So I think the conversation has changed. I just hope we don't forget it so fast.
Yes. And how do you think in the new normal, we are taking this forward? Like we say, this is the new normal world. So how do you think that Ayurveda and medicine as a whole has changed in the coming times ahead?
Well, I think consumers are more cognizant about healthcare, more about health. We think about it more. We talk about space, clean air. We're prioritizing these things. So I think that's a good thing. And I've seen it around the way conversations happen near me now. And I just hope we don't forget it. As I said earlier. I think we were jolted by something, but our memory is short-lived. And I think getting it completely will be a very risky thing for our society.
Yes. I think this has also increased the talks about climate change and other environmental conditions. People are more conscious about the health, as you've rightly said. People are going on walks, or even the small bit of it. I think that has changed instead of just let it be attitude. So yes, I think that has brought at least small, minute changes in each one of us from the health perspective. I think that is where I also agree with you. And coming back to your firm, so I also wanted to ask you, what made you choose the Belgium-based firm Verlinvest over the other options that you might have opened for you after like building such a big brand name under your name?
I think that was an easy one, the people and the opportunity. So I get to run a VC fund that I'm pretty independent with, sponsored by one LP, which is Verlinvest. And at 29, they were willing to give me a fund to run by myself. So they trusted me. I got to know them. I found them to be a great group of people under which or with which I could perform. And so it just worked out for everyone in that perspective. But I think the opportunity of running a fund independently at the age that I was and the trust they put in me, I think was really exciting.
So how did you transition from this, like the independent firm, and then how did you start off running it off and then like managing things, all of that together? How did you just do it?
I think it just happened. It came with time. I learned from people who were in the fund management business. I went and spoke to people, got a lot of advice on what to do and what not to do. And then luckily I had the whole Verlinvest infrastructure with me. I then went and built a small team and made a few investments, and touch wood, things are going fine now. But I think it was an exciting opportunity for me and was something I'd thought about as a possible next step. So it worked out for me.
Yeah, I think it worked out pretty well for you, because you are an inspirational figure for all of us. So yeah,
my
I guess
pleasure. And look, I'm happy to take a few questions before I drop off as well. I see one in the chat box, but if there are any questions, I'm happy to take them before I drop off.
Yes, sure. So we can address the question as well. So we have a question from Piyush. He says that how do you see the future of health analytics and Ayurveda, and how do you think that will change the healthcare ecosystem in India and globally?
Yeah, look, I talked about Ayurveda's future, so I'll talk about analytics. I think that
yes,
I've invested in a company called ECONCLAVE from the fund, and that's aggregation of patient health records and management of all of this data. I think it's huge. It'll make us smarter, and it'll make us better at reacting to situations like the pandemic. I think India's early on its journey. We've seen the West move a little bit far forward, but I think we're excited to see what we can do in India with this as well. So hopefully ECA and many other businesses like this will lead the charge.
Yes, sir. So I, on a closing note, I just want to ask you, what is your one guru mantra that you would like to give to all of us here that we can take back with us, reflect from your end?
For me, I had this quote of Steve Jobs in front of me in my office, and it said, "Stay hungry, stay foolish," and then I added, "Keep building." So that's what I would tell all of you guys. You're at a very exciting phase in your lives. This time never comes back. I may sound like an old person saying it, but yeah, just live your dreams, because you're in probably the most exciting economy in the world right now, which wasn't the case when I was growing up.
I think that advice means a lot to me and the audience as well as large. It's not just me. I think the audience and everyone here has learned a lot from you, derived a lot of insights from what you've mentioned.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very, very happy to host you, sir. It was
My
really,
pleasure.
really
I hope I added some value and
of course, a lot of value. Yes, definitely.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, sir, for taking out time for us today.
So, on behalf of E-Club of SJM IIT Bombay, I would like to thank our guest speaker Arjun sir for taking out time, and I would also like to extend my thanks for Neha ma'am for being the moderator of the session. Thank you, ma'am. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Now, I would like to invite Praveen Mishra, who is the head of E-Club of SJM IIT Bombay, to take over for the closing ceremony.
Thank you, Moin, and thank you all for joining, staying still so late. This season of E-Conclave witnessed the participation of 2,000 students, professors, and budding entrepreneurs. We are thankful to all the speakers, moderators, and hosts and participants for making this event such a huge success. We hope that we were able to fulfill our objective of enhancing your learning experience about entrepreneurship and leadership, and hope to see that you will start your ventures soon. Thank you for joining and have a great evening. We hope to see you during E-Conclave 2023. Thank you.